Hey everybody, Josh from Populi here, and you don't have to be scared of rubrics in Populi. I've been scared to do this video for a long time, staying up all night, drinking coffee, watching episodes of Columbo, terrified of comprehending rubrics. But it turns out that actually rubrics in Populi are pretty easy. This video will be most useful for academic admins and registrars, as well as faculty and teaching assistants. You're in the world of academia, so I'm sure you know what a rubric is, but let's do a quick definition for clarity's sake. Rubrics are a schematic for judging student work according to categories. So for example, rather than just saying that this paper earns 80 out of 100 points, you're saying the content of the paper earned the student 50 points out of 50, but the composition of the paper only earned them 30 points out of 50. It's the same total grade, but it might prompt faculty to think about the student's work in a more specific way and to judge work between students more uniformly. And it might also mean that students get more detailed feedback. Quick overview of the rubric process. Once rubrics are set up and added to an assignment on a course, faculty grade student work, they edit the rubric scores, and then students can see their grade broken out according to the rubric. Let's look at setup. Academic admins set up global rubrics in one place, and then faculty and registrars set up course rubrics in another. If you're an academic admin, you'll go to Academics, Settings, Rubrics. If you're faculty or a registrar, on a course, you'll go to Settings and then Rubrics. Academic admins have a tab for rubrics and then criteria, so they can create those and manage them independently, where faculty and registrars create rubrics and then criteria within those. I'm going to be doing this from the academic admin perspective, creating a global rubric, but it'll be the same process if you're creating a rubric on a course. Click over here to add a rubric. We're going to create a new rubric. We'll give it a name and description. And for this initial example, we're going to say that this is for a short story assignment. We're going to keep it simple here as we start out, and we'll get more complex down the road. We'll choose to add criterion, and then we'll create new criterion. And we'll give this criterion a name and description. We're going to use just these two levels already supplied here. The first level will be readable, and the second will be unreadable. We'll set the weight here to 75%, and we'll have a second criterion as well, timeliness, with levels on time or late. And we'll set the weight to 25% for this one, and then we'll save. Okay, so now you can see that once we've saved that rubric, it ends up over here as a draft. But if you see a draft like this, click in and then go to the published field and set that to yes. And because I'm setting up a global rubric as an academic admin, this will show up globally. Now let's go and look at what a faculty user would do with this rubric. On a course, on the Assignments tab, as they're creating an assignment or after the fact, they'll also have the rubric field down here. For this short story assignment, we're going to set the rubric field to short story. Then the instructor goes to a student's assignment submission and clicks to enter a grade. See this little grid icon next to the grade field? That's an incredible portal to the rubric dimension. Instructors then enter the rubric scores. Let's look at what happens here. I'll put in the highest score possible, awarding 100% of the points. And you can see that the rubric knows where that score falls and indicates it. Also, I didn't mention it at the time, but let's flash back to screen cap to show that I set this rubric up without ranges. See? No ranges means that the point value entered for each level is the highest point level for that range. We set readable to 100 and unreadable to 0. So the upper point value for unreadable is 0, which means that we can only trigger that level by entering 0. Anything more than that, like even if we input 0.1, kicks us into readable. Okay, you enter the rubric scores and you'll notice the points get distributed here according to the percentages on the rubric and then the total point value on the assignment. Now we'll save. And you can see back on that rubric scores field there that we've got a little check mark indicating that we have entered rubric scores for this student. And then make sure that you also save grades. Now let's look at the last step in this process, students viewing their rubric scores. Students will go to the course, then they'll click on assignments, and then they'll click on the pertinent assignment. Then over on the right under rubric, click on the rubric listed there. Then they'll see each criterion for the rubric. The green will indicate the level into which they've fallen. And over on the far right, they'll see their score out of the number of points for each criterion. At the bottom of that column, they'll see the total number of points. Let's look at some additional setup options. We're using an academic admin, so we'll look at the global rubrics. Let's go to this research paper, no range rubric, and look at how that's set up. So we've got more than one criterion set up here and more than 2 levels. This is for a research paper, so there's a research criterion here. It's likely that the more descriptive and specific that you make these descriptions for each level, the more useful they'll be to instructors and students. Everything 100% and below but above 75 will qualify as exceptional. Everything at 75 and below but above 25 will be considered fine. Everything at 25 and below but above 0 will be poor. And then anything entered as 0 exactly will qualify as dreadful. The second criterion here for composition is set up just like research. And then we have a real basic one down here, just 2 categories, on time or late. These are not set up as range criteria. Obviously, they still have ranges, but you only get to set the upper limit on them. Let's have a look at what's different about using ranges. We'll go to the research paper rubric with ranges. On this rubric, it's the same basic setup for the various criteria, but you can see the top and bottom numbers for the ranges here, clearly defined. And you can see that we have a final range here at the bottom. So when should you not use a range and when should you use one? This is basically a difference in whether or not the top and bottom ranges for each level get displayed, but there's another bigger distinction. Without the range settings checked, the bottommost level of the criterion will always be equal to 0. So if you want the bottom level of your criterion to be a range and not directly equal to 0, you'll check the box for ranges. Let's hop back over and look at the rubric without a range. There's that final 0 level at the end. And then if we flip back over to the rubric with ranges, we can see the bottom level is a range. So the big difference is that bottom level, do what is right in your own eyes. We've got a great article on setting up rubrics that you can check out, a video about running courses generally, and some links to videos about grading in Populi. A great way to keep up with updates and improvements to Populi as a software is via our weekly release notes. Those go out on Friday and you can follow them in our knowledge base. To do that, when you're logged into Populi, click on Help in the upper right-hand corner, click Search the Knowledge Base, and then click Release Notes and Announcements. Click on the heading for release notes and then click Follow. You'll receive an email when we post release notes there, and that'll keep you on the bleeding edge of Populi features and improvements. And the release notes are fun. Weirdly enough, lots of people say it's a highlight of their week. Yikes. I've been Josh for Populi and you've been great. Thanks for watching.